All right. Test.
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 And we are back here on Convincing Idiots. This is round number 3 with Millennial Nick GenX Brian, and we are ready to go. We have recently talked about our love for many things in Marvel universes and DC universes and Comic-Con culture in general. However, one love that we both share very dearly that was not covered in that segment is our love for this gentleman right here, Arnold Schwarzenegger, as pictured on my T-shirt. We love Arnold Schwarzenegger. We love Arnold. We love everything about Arnold. I don't know about you. I've often tried to figure out what it is about him that I find so endearing. And I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so real quick, my grandfather came here to this country at age 18 from Germany. Arnold Schwarzenegger is Austrian. People from our listeners in Germany, I'm sure, if they're listening, will tell you that German and Austrian accents are very different. And while I respect that, and it's true, to a lot of us dumb Americans, they sound very similar to us. So I think there's an element of Arnold Schwarzenegger and his thick accent and the way he pronounces things that kind of reminds me of my grandfather, who I just loved so much and was my hero. And then I just, growing up, I was born in 88, and all growing up, I mean, he was everywhere. He was, such a massive star. He was in all these blockbusters, big action star. And also, we mentioned off the top, just kind of, there's a vibe, an aura to Arnold that's very likable, that's very down to earth. Brian and I were talking off camera. He served a full term as the governor of California, which was how many years altogether?
It was 8 years total. So he was elected in a recall election in 2003. So he defeated the Democratic contender at the time, and then he finished out that term, and then he was reelected in 2006 and served a full term until 2011, and then he returned to acting and made more movies after that. So, pretty amazing career for sure.
Absolutely. So, and I mean, at the end of the day, I also think that's really cool too, to say that, it's kind of a cool thing that he could come here from Austria and make this life for himself. Obviously it started with his physique and the bodybuilding and the way he looked, and then to transition from that to a legitimate movie star. You know what I mean? And, certain roles you can nitpick and say here, oh, well, maybe he wasn't the most believable in this or that or whatever. But at the end of the day, for a bodybuilder, he did pretty well in the film industry and in acting, and then from there to launch off into politics and be a governor of California for 8 years is really incredible. And we've done a little bit of talking on the show. We try not to get too political or anything like that, but I think a lot of us are, the three of us tend to be a little more left-leaning or liberal. But my shirt that says Arnold for President is, I swear to God, I would vote for him if he ran for president. Even though he is a Republican, he's always been a very liberal style Republican, very progressive, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And I love Arnold. He's very climate conscious and in a lot of social aspects, which is what's important to me. He's very progressive, but fiscally responsible and a Republican in many respects. So I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just trying to wrap it up in a bow like that. Just everything about him. And like you said, he's had things in the past. I believe there was a maid or something that he had an affair with, had a child with, and all that, So, I mean, certainly he's had missteps in his life, but to my knowledge, he's not done anything super horrific to anyone, or that's, I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just a big fan.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I mean, and you see his son, by the way. His son's actually it looks like he's getting a little bit bulk himself, and obviously working with Dad. And it seemed like they had a good relationship and everything like that. But it's really the only thing that stopped him from running for president is he couldn't. Right? He was not born in this country, so he was not a citizen born in the United States. So he can't run for president. But probably would have made a good run at it if he was able to. But yeah, just an amazing story. I mean, think about that. Any person coming to the U.S. with that sheer determination, first of all, to build up his body like that, and the amount of work would just it's astounding for any person to bulk themselves up like that. It's just the dedication has to be just ridiculous to do everything from the eating and the working and just to get himself. And he decides somewhere along the way, I want to be an actor with this accent. I'm sure 1,000 people told him he couldn't do it. He'd be stupid for doing it. No way you can do this. And he said basically, yeah, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to do it anyway. And became a legitimate movie star, like you said, and created a lot of very entertaining movies. And the whole politics thing was great. And like you say, his messaging and everything else is very positive. So, yeah, but he definitely gave us some awesome movies growing up and even continuing. So that's our main topic here, is what are some of our, I know one of yours at the very least, but what are some of our favorite Arnold movies of all time? Maybe we start there. In no particular order, but do you have like a top 5? Like, what is your Mount Rushmore of Arnold movies, if you will, sir?
I have one that I kind of wish I would have seen Arnold in a role as. It's just, I mean, we've seen him in so many roles, right? These big action stars. He was the Terminator, and he fought off Predator, and all these different things. I would have liked to seen Arnold as, I mean, we've seen him. He was a dad in Jingle All the Way, which is one of my favorites. But I would have liked to have seen him in just a role where there is no type of physical any demands. He's just maybe an insurance salesman, perhaps, and maybe a struggling insurance agent, because I mean, no doubt, if Arnold Schwarzenegger was to sell insurance, and I mean, by God, he could sell you insurance,
sure,
but he would probably be met with his greatest opponent ever. I'm talking greater than anything he's ever faced in Terminator, greater than the Predator. Okay. Ooh. Certainly the greatest foe he would ever have to face is trying to sell insurance against our good friend Aaron Blake at Blake Insurance Agency. Blake Insurance Agency is an Erie insurance agent. I'm sorry, group. That's yes, right. I'm sorry. Yep. I don't have Dean's script, but they do something with Erie. They offer you many variations of insurance. I don't know that Predator insurance is necessarily covered.
I don't think so, maybe.
But if that was a thing that any insurance agency could offer you, I guarantee Blake Insurance Agency would have that for you. But just for the fun of it, go ahead and give them a call at 234-571-5359 to get your free 5-minute quote today, and tell Aaron Blake that Convincing Idiots sent you in this very clunky manner. We'd appreciate it.
Very good. Excellent. Yes. Excellent.
So, did you have a Mount Rushmore? Is that what you asked for initially?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so this is pretty simple for me. My top 5. Now, you're probably going to find that a lot of mine are, once again, reflective of when I grew up.
Sure.
So, in no particular order, I'm going to throw a couple family favorites up there. We're going to start with Twins. That's probably my 5 spot. Twins with Danny DeVito is definitely one of my favorites. Once again, this kind of adds to that. This might have been one of the first ones that gives you that side of Arnold. That's kind of, he's this very naive, and he's the same thing. He's from a foreign land. He comes over here. He's very naive. He's just this very, what's the word I'm looking for? Gullible. He's right, because Danny DeVito is passing himself off as twin brother, and he's kind of a lowlife. He's taking advantage of him, but Arnold's there for him, and he's so it's a good family movie, I'd say, for the most part. And I always remembered liking that movie as a kid.
I'd say you're right. It was in '88. I'm sorry to interrupt you. '88 was that movie, and looking at his list of movies up to that point, yeah, it probably would say that it's probably his first.
Yeah, like for the family movie kind of
type
thing
of role.
Not an action star kind of guy, right?
Correct.
So, and after that, I would follow with another one in the same tone, Kindergarten Cop. Love Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah.
Still love Kindergarten Cop. Such a good movie. I'd throw that one in there, and then we're rounding the top three. I've definitely got to throw Predator in there. And as a matter of fact, I would like to shout out my friends over at Magic City Brewing Company for this wonderful beer called Dutch that they named after Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in Predator. It's a wonderful IPA that they have crafted over at Magic City Brewing Company. I don't know if they still have them or not, but yeah, that's a good one. So his character of Dutch in Predator, definitely a good one. Great leading role in that movie. Definitely a thriller. So yeah, really love Predator. That's one of my all-time favorites. Number two, I'm going to have to go obviously with the Terminator movie. But for me, it's T2. And I think, Judgment Day for a lot of people is widely considered to be a rare instance where a sequel to a big movie was probably the best one. I would say, Terminator 2 Judgment Day is my number two spot. Number one is hard for me because there's just so many good Arnold movies. Like I said, it's just so enjoyable, and he shows so many different sides of himself. But I don't know. There's just nothing that gets me into the holiday spirit more than Jingle All the Way. It is definitely my favorite movie of all time. I have Arnold Howard Funko Pop here with me. I've got Terminator Arnold. This is from my childhood and everything. But yeah, I've got all the props here. Big fan. But yes, Jingle All the Way is my favorite movie of all time. We've made a bit of a joke of it, and it is. I like to play it up. It is funny that it's my favorite movie of all time. I fully understand why that's funny, but it's not a fucking lie. It actually is, from the bottom of my heart. It's my favorite movie. If you were going to Men in Black mind erase me and you get to take one movie to have, you are only ever allowed knowing what you know, seeing what you've seen, one movie that means something to you, that you love, that brings you joy every time, just as much as the first time. Jingle All the Way is the one I'm keeping. So it's Jingle All the Way for me, obviously.
Amazing. Still amazes me. That's great, though.
I can't wait to see where Jingle All the Way ranks on your top five, though. I'm thinking maybe not as high as mine, but at least a solid 3, I think, for you.
It did not make my list. It's different there a little bit. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So my 5 here, I've got Kindergarten Cop, and that was 1990. And you're right. That was it was kind of a blend for him. I mean, of course, as you know already, but he started out as this gruff cop. I love the line in that movie. It still brings it. I'm the party pooper.
The party pooper.
I'm the party pooper. Yeah. And he's just a burnout cop. And then there was a whole fun side of Arnold with the little kids and the falling in love with the school teacher and all that. Just a fun movie, like you say. So that is my only one with him outside the whole action. I preferred him. That's where I grew up. That was my Arnold, if you will, in the 80s. I was a teenager then, and it was Arnold and Sly, and those are the two huge action movie stars back in my time. But
speaking of which, real quick, as you just tied it all together perfectly. We're talking Arnold. You said Sly, and you said action here, all that stuff. So as I mentioned in the first segment, I watched The Last Action Hero for the first time tonight. What I found really funny was that when he is out of the movie as his character and he's in the real world, or no, I'm sorry, it's while they're in the movie. They go to a Blockbuster, a movie rental place in the movie, and the kid's trying to point out to him why they're in a movie. He goes, everyone here is attractive, every girl is attractive. That's not reality. That's not the real world. Everybody that works here, everybody that's in the store, every girl that you pass is gorgeous, and that's just not reality. But so they walk in and they get into the Blockbuster, and there's this big sign for Terminator, and it's Sylvester Stallone as Terminator.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And he goes, "What about this?" And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "That's you in real world." He goes, "You're supposed." He goes, "It's a great movie. He's wonderful in the role." And he's like, "Yeah, but that's you where I come from." And it was just funny that they used Sylvester Stallone as the Terminator in this other reality where Arnold is, this character. But it was kind of funny.
That's very good. Yeah, they were definitely kind of friendly rivals in that time. I got Predator as well, 1987. I rewatched that a couple months ago. It's on my feed. I don't remember where I saw it, but it was free on streaming, and I'm just like, God dang it, this movie still holds up.
It's a fucking good movie.
Well,
yeah. It's very suspenseful. It's good. It's just
just super well done. And by the way, the Prey, I can't remember if we talked about this or not, but Prey, Prey is coming out in August on Hulu, which is Predator set in like 300 years ago in the
it's like a Native American tribe. Yeah.
Yes, it's very
good. It's funny you said that. I don't remember you bringing that up on the podcast. If you have, but I found out about it today, like this morning. I was scrolling through Hulu for something else, and I came across that Prey, and I watched the trailer. It looks very interesting. Yeah,
looks terrific.
August 5th on Hulu, yes. I believe it is.
That's right. I think you're right. I have Terminator, the original, in 1984.
Yeah.
Again, he just he didn't, obviously he didn't speak a whole lot in that movie, but he was just such a force, just such a presence back then. Yeah, just so frightening and foreboding, and he played that role so well. Terrifying, terrifying as a Terminator robot. And T2 is my next one. As you mentioned, 91. He had definitely more of a. He could show off more of his acting chops in that movie, and I love the fact that he was the good guy, obviously fighting the liquid Terminator, whatever. Great role for him. So popular back in its time. I remember going to watch it at the drive-in and just being super stoked to see it, and love that movie.
How sad is that when he's going down at the end too? I know. It's rough, man.
Yeah, it was. I
remember watching that as a little kid, and I'm like, man, this is sad. Like, it's really fucking sad.
Well, that's a prelude, by the way. So one of our upcoming episodes, if you're listening to us still, we're going to do some of the movie fictional deaths that hit us the most. And maybe that one there might make our list, Nick. That was a very touching moment. It was a robot. And
Absolutely.
number one for me, Arnold. This movie was on cable when I was a kid. Back in 1982, it was released. I watched this movie. It's one of those movies where if it was on, I put it on. I don't care if it was, partway into it or whatever it was. It was just I loved it, entertaining, and he was awesome in it. And also the great James Earl Jones was in this movie as the key villain. Also terrific in this movie. Conan the Barbarian, the original Conan the Barbarian.
That was really early on. That was like one of his very first.
82. 82. Yeah. So he was just starting to. It was probably one of his hugest roles at the time, or maybe it's probably his first big, huge role. Think about it, that's a superhero movie. Think about that. Conan the Barbarian is a Marvel comic property way back, but he was a tip top physical condition. The sword play he actually learned. I mean, he's twirling that sword around, and it was just beautifully shot. Everything about that movie, it got a little wonky with the villains but it was still, it was a fictional comic booky type movie. I thought it was great. I love him in that movie. They made a sequel, Conan the Destroyer, which was pretty decent. And I had no idea, Nick, but I saw even tonight looking at his movie list on IMDb. There's another Conan movie apparently in the works, The Legend of Conan, that he is casted in, and there's no information yet, but you can find it out there on IMDb. So it seems to be something in development, and I will absolutely watch that. Whatever it is, whenever it is, Arnold is any form of Conan the Barbarian, I will definitely check that out. So Very entertaining. Love those, and I definitely have others that are my. So it's hard to pick 5 if you're an Arnold fan like we are. So do you have any do you have any honorable? Maybe Arnoldable mentions? How about that?
Arnoldable mentions. True Lies. True Lies was a good movie. Very good movie. It's funny because, like, as big of an Arnold fan, unfortunately, the time that he was in a Batman movie is the one that I hate the very most.
Yes. Yes.
So I don't even. It's not an honorable mention, but it's more of a I understand you exist kind of thing. Like it was, his portrayal of Mr. Freeze. The movie wasn't bad because of him. I blame George Clooney, but it's it was just
terribly written, terrible movie.
Yeah. Now he's been in what's that other one? And this is probably a little bit sacrilegious. I've never seen Total Recall. That was another one that's on my list. That's tonight when I was picking a couple to watch. I never seen Total Recall.
Yeah.
Familiar with the concept. Haven't seen it, but it's on, I think HBO Max has it. Okay. So I have access to it. I'm going to watch it. And I am also going to watch The Running Man because that's another one I have not seen. And you've been praising it, so I'm going to watch it. But yeah, True Lies would be my big honorable mention. It's So what about you?
So what you just mentioned. So Total Recall all the way back in 1990. Now they redid this with Colin Farrell, and I haven't seen the remake either. And that did not make our remake list. I don't think any of us have seen it to call it a good or bad reboot. But original was very, very good, and at the time the effects were very interesting and intriguing. But he was very, very good in that role. And as you mentioned as well, The Running Man, all the way back in 1987. Just a goofy movie. But the premise is interesting. Richard Dawson is great in this movie as the game show host. So they basically take criminals, and it's weird because it's set in like 2017. So by 2017, the world's already to shit. And the stuff that they talk about is like
they only missed it by a few years, really.
Yeah, you can kind of see where it's like, like elections are fixed, and art is censored, and all this stuff. I'm just like, be fucking careful, guys, because we might be watching The Running Man in like 3 or 4 years from now on Hulu Plus or something like that.
Dave Chappelle might argue that we're there now. I mean, maybe
that's right.
We'll tease that for a future episode.
It'll be a Friday night. It'll have The Running Man on, Nick, and also Vampire Bachelorette, perhaps, on Hulu Plus or something like that.
That's a perfect night.
Yeah, if there's anything good for the world going to shit, if we get that TV viewing right there, it'll be worth it in that respect. No, but it's a good bad movie, if you will. The premise is very goofy. It's Jesse Ventura comes back and pairs up with Arnold again. He uses the "I'll be back" line in the movie, which is like not necessary, but of course they had to make him use it.
Sure.
Commando, 1985.
Commando, I forgot about Commando.
Yeah, it's hard not to keep that. It's hard not to keep that out of the top 5, but just solid movie for him. And one I don't know if you've even heard of this movie, Nick. Maggie, back in 2015. It's a small film. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's the girl. I won't remember her name, but it's the young girl from Zombieland. That actress. Okay.
Oh. Yeah. Oh.
Okay. It's okay. But the premise is the premise is very interesting. She is. This is a world of zombies. Zombie apocalypse, okay? And obviously Arnold's an older man in 2015. It's not that long ago. So he's got the beard and everything, but he's the father. And she has been bitten by a zombie. So she is turning, and he's trying to protect her from people taking her away and killing her and stuff. He's trying to seeing if he could, keep her from turning. So it's just obviously set in a fantasy world, but it's such a good father-daughter touching story of love that he has for his daughter. And you can imagine where if your child, if you're in that horrific situation where your child is turning into a zombie or something like that, you'd just it'd be the torture of you know that you're going to, it's all that is prevalent in this movie, but it's mainly those two. I mean, there's other characters of the movie, of course, but he plays a very, very good. It's a tragic father-daughter type stories. So go find
Abigail
Maggie
Breslin is her name, by the way.
That's
I just went and looked. I wouldn't have actually known, when I saw her face, I recognized her, but I wouldn't have known her name, so I didn't feel that bad.
She was also very, very good. But they played very well together in this. Be a very heartfelt movie. You kind of forget it's about the zombie thing is not as prevalent as just the tortured father trying to protect his daughter, basically. So go find that, and it's you appreciate Arnold in a different light, if you will, with that one. Okay. Any other ones? Now you mentioned that Batman and Robin was not Arnold's fault. It was a very over-the-top, goofy Mr. Freeze character. He looked great. He looked great in the suit and the costume. He was awesome looking.
You're right. When you put it into perspective, and there were a couple moments, when he's talking about his wife, they lost because they're playing, he does. That's what I say. I mean, I think a lot of people get hung up on his accent or the idea that he is an action star, and don't always give him proper credit for his acting abilities. I mean, I think he's going to be up there winning, fucking best actor, for anything. But I mean, like I said, to start off as a bodybuilder, I think he's quite a good actor. He's definitely delivered some touching scenes and things like that. And I will, definitely give honorable mention too to the one that I watched tonight, The Last Action Hero. It was fun. It was a fun movie. It was enjoyable. It was on par with a lot of the movies that he was making at that time. It fit that kind of early to mid 90s Arnold, where he was kind of actually doing a little bit of the two main genres that we talked about here tonight. He was, in many scenes, he was the action hero. He was that guy, and they really leaned into in many ways how cheesy it was and things like that, and the different, he'd use some Terminator lines, things like that. It was fun, but at the same time, he gains this relationship with this kid, and he starts to look out for him, and even though he's kind of a pain in his ass at the beginning, he kind of grows to appreciate him and look out for him and stuff like that. It was good little it was a fun family movie. Yeah, it was good.
Okay, very good. I've got a couple that weren't as good, but again, I don't blame Arnold. We already talked about Batman and Robin. To me, the Terminator 3 forward, anything that he was in, again, not his fault.
Yeah, right.
It's just the storyline. They really went off the rails with the Terminator movies. And
I remember liking the battle scene between him and the female Terminator. That was 3.
That's correct. That's correct.
And she was good too. It wasn't. I didn't not like that movie. It just it really you couldn't hold a candle to the first two. It was just it's kind of not fair. But that movie, I remember thinking it wasn't bad. I remember I went to Tower City up in Cleveland, the movie theater up there, to see that movie, and I enjoyed it. It was a solid action movie, but when you're holding yourself to the expectation of the Terminator franchise, it's a little tricky. But I remember them having a really good fight scene. But yeah, and I don't think I've seen. I saw, was it Salvation? That I think he was briefly a part. That was the one with Christian Bale.
Right.
But there's a newer one yet that I haven't seen. I haven't even seen that one.
I haven't either, because the storyline plot angers me so much when I read about it, what they do. I have to watch it just because it's a Terminator movie. He's reprising the role, and Sarah Connor comes back, the original actress, and everything. So it's gotta watch it just for that. But I don't know. So I just not one I rushed out to see. Again, not his fault. It's just I don't know. Just the storyline, like I said, I just didn't think it made a whole lot of sense what they did with it. Have you ever seen his first movie, Nick?
What is his very first movie?
Hercules in New York, all the way back in 1970.
No.
So
Hercules in New York.
Hercules in New York, and it's probably about as good as you can imagine the title being. So they overdubbed his voice even back then. There's clips you could find of him without and it's Arnold talking. So he acted.
Yeah.
But they made the
put
decision
like a very American voice on him to be like,
right,
he sounds like this.
Which looks ridiculous. You imagine because back then you'd know the difference, I'm sure. But when that you know his voice
such
and you see somebody
iconic
talking
figure now,
right? It just the movie itself was just simply a bad movie. So if you're if you maybe it's one evening where you just want to relax. Maybe you hung out with the neighbors for a little bit or something like that. It's just like I just want something just to kind of ease in here and not think. I could sort of.
I just want some jazz cabbage, and I'm just to think about what Hercules in New York might have been like. That's all.
That's exactly right. It's definitely a candidate for that. And they may have even done it on one of the Mystery Science or something like that. Over the years, they may have even made fun of it at that level. But I don't know.
What I'm interested to know how. So is it exactly you said? It's like you think, right? Hercules in New York. It's a Hercules.
Hercules comes down. Is the god
and the Barbarian? Conan the Barbarian-esque, but in New York City.
I don't remember. It gets into like adventure of some sort with a local guy. It's something like that. So a guy knows he's Hercules. I don't remember the whole premise of it. I saw it a long time ago. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was in a Mystery Science Theater. Something I think, but I know I watched it for some reason.
I think I just recall whatever little bits and pieces I've seen of it as because New York's big and he's Hercules, he's big and he's strong. But I remember it being like he was just laboring and walking around holding his feet a lot, like he was tired and his feet hurt. And I just remember seeing that and being like, God, if only he had access or someone at this time to hook him up with such an incredible way to get around town electrically. So we're talking environmentally responsible, a lot easier on his feet. If only they had the technology like our good friends at RPM Bike Shop has. If only he knew back then in 1978? 1970, oh my God, RPM Bike Shop, where you been all our lives. If only he knew in 1970, if he had the access to a computer machine in 1970 and could simply type into Facebook, RPM Bike Shop, he go in there and start typing is what is this thing in the RPM Bike Shops, and he puts it in there. And then, boom, electric bikes. What is this? Bicycles with electricity is crazy, it's blowing your mind. And then he knows that now he can get around New York City on an electric bike from RPM Bike Shop, or he could just pick up his telephone and dial 330-808-7792, and they, from Carrollton, Ohio, I'm sure they would just send it right to New York because they're good people like that. They'd hook him up. After all, it is Arnold/Hercules. So there you go. Right. But if you find yourself in a predicament like that, be sure to contact our friends at RPM Bike Shop today. Like I said, Facebook or by phone, 330-808-7792, or their website, rpmbikeshop.com.
Very good. It's like a chariot of the gods, Nick.
Absolutely, yes.
If you will.
It's chariot of the gods. That's what a tagline. You hear that, RPM Bike Shop? See? Chariot of the gods. Whoa. That's right. I like it. That's nice.
You can have that for free. That's right. That's right. Well, I can't think of any creative segue into our next sponsor. I was trying to think of something from Chariot of the Gods and Woodworking of the Gods.
What would you? Okay, so here I am, right? I'm in New York City, right? But I have this bicycle. It's like a chariot, but I want enclosure. It's Hercules. He needs a chariot. Where would he go to have the finest chariot crafted for him? What woodworker might he contact to find a good chariot, or someone who has abilities to build something chariot-esque?
I'm sure they could build a fine wood chariot if they chose to get into that market, Nick. But our fine sponsors at Bellmark Amazon store. So Bellmark, BELLEMARK. Go check them out on Amazon. They've chosen at this point, though, to not get into chariot building. I think it's something that Mark is playing around with to fine tune. It's a lot to investment and marketing and that type of thing. But what they do really well at right now. Go ahead. Want to say something?
I was just going to say, Mark, if you're thinking about venturing into chariots and you're not sure how much of a demand, real quick, think of how Dean, Brian, and myself would look rolling up to a Convincing Idiots live event in our very own handcrafted Convincing Idiot's Chariot. The people will flock to it because, granted, you don't see many people riding around in chariots right now, but once they see the three of us dudes rolling around in a chariot, might change the game.
I love it.
Get out ahead of this one. Yeah, for sure.
I love it. Yep. I picture maybe Seth or somebody pulling us.
Yes.
Not and maybe a horse, just like a strong guy, just pulling us, He rolls
or maybe
up.
I could just hold his beard from the reins, just it's long. I could,
Mm-hmm.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah, Seth and Jonathan or something like that, just pulling us up there, something like that.
Couple of young, strong steeds.
Yeah, maybe Matt in the back, something like that.
Yeah.
So I like it. Matt's pushing. Maybe Matt's pushing in the back or something like that.
I like it.
Yeah, no, but
whatever gets us there.
That's right. They do specialize. Belmark, Amazon store, they specialize in a couple things here. You got a floating liquor cabinet, which I have one in my dining room right now. It's a lovely addition to the room. You mount it on the wall very easily, and you can store some of your liquor bottles and glasses in there, and it even folds down. You have a nice shelf that you can set your drinks on, mix a drink on the shelf, and fold it back into place very easily and conveniently. Nice. Floating nightstands. You hang on your bedroom wall if you wish. Give yourself some extra space in the room. You don't have a space for a whole nightstand, or you just don't even want that in there. Mount these lovely crafted woodworking shelves on your wall. You have a nice space for your phone or whatever you want to put on a nightstand, and a compost countertops. So you want to reduce landfill, reducing waste that you're throwing out there. A lot of people now are buying these compost bins on their countertops in their kitchen as they're cooking, and you just want to put stuff in there and instead let it compost a little bit. Then you can dispose of it separately outside of your trash. 2 different sizes. Again, find everything on the Belmark Amazon store. Everything's delivered safely, conveniently through the Amazon delivery service. They handle all the transactions for you very simply through the Amazon store. So go check them out. We appreciate their sponsorship as well.
Absolutely.
That's right.
We got good friends in this business. We got good friends sponsor us. We got good. Well, we're talking about enslaving some of our listeners and carrying us around by chariot. Things are looking good.
So they'll do it voluntarily. I fully expect they'll do it voluntarily. I want Jeff in there too. Jeff in that absolutely. Same. Yeah.
Jeff can be my special chariot boy.
I like it. Mm-hmm. I like it. He's in whipping reach.
Somebody give him my Jeffy whip. Give him my Jeffy whip.
Jeff might like it, though. He might enjoy that. Yeah. All right. So
real quick, though, you dangled the carrot, and I must ask.
Sure.
What are some roles that Arnold Schwarzenegger may have passed up?
Oh, yeah. I
wanted to hear about that.
Yes, I mentioned it. I didn't even pull it up here. So let's talk
because it's kind of funny. You'd mentioned you're like you're younger and you always hear those stories of I missed this opportunity, I missed this role, but you kind of can't be that mad if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know what he passed up on, but you kind of can't argue with his resume. Things worked out pretty fucking okay. So I think whatever he may have missed might suck a little, but you're he ended up all right.
Yeah. So this is from uproxx.com. uproxx.com, and these are a few roles that he almost got into over his time, and just stuff. A lot of actors probably say the same type of thing. But all the way back, I think about this. How close this was in 1978. So first of all, Richard Kyle was originally cast as the Incredible Hulk in the 1970s. Now, Richard Kyle he played Jaws in the James Bond movies, and he was the big guy in the Happy Gilmore movie. You would recognize him, the guy with the nail in his head, right?
Yep.
But he wasn't buff enough. So the role came down between Lou Ferrigno and Arnold. And the producers went with Lou Ferrigno because they felt Arnold wasn't tall enough. Ferrigno is 6'5", and Arnold is 6'2". So by a couple inches in height, we almost
had Arnold as the Hulk.
Now Lou Ferrigno was terrific in that role.
Sure.
I can't imagine anybody not being the original Hulk besides Lou Ferrigno. But Arnold was that close to being the original Hulk.
Wow.
The Terminator, Nick, now he obviously was in the Terminator, but he almost turned down the role because he did not want to play the villain. He wanted to play John Connor in the movie. Okay.
Interesting.
So James Cameron had him in mind for well, actually, I take that back. James Cameron had him in mind for Kyle Reese. Okay. But it all worked out to where Arnold, played the Terminator, and it'd be interesting to see what would have happened, what multiverse branch would have went out here if Arnold would have played Kyle Reese and not the Terminator. I don't know that maybe it would have went as well for him, so it was a good choice on everyone's part to have Arnold play the role of the Terminator.
Which makes sense. You're like, look at you, man. You look like a machine. Like if you were going to try to pass off a killing machine as a human, it's you. Like
absolutely, absolutely. He was just so frightening in that movie. He was considered for the lead role in RoboCop back in 1987.
That makes a lot of sense, especially after with the Terminator stuff and
Yep. One reason he did not get it, he was literally too large of a man for the role to get him into the outfits and everything else that they wanted to do at the time. So his size kept him out of that role. Full Metal Jacket, also in 1987. So Stanley Kubrick had him in mind for Adam Baldwin's part of Animal Mother in Full Metal Jacket. But Arnold was too busy. So that was the time period, as you mentioned, he was just a force in movies, and his schedule just did not allow it. I mean, two of the movies we talked about here, in 1987 alone, Running Man came out and Predator came out in 87. So his schedule must have been absolutely crazy back then, to his credit.
Yeah.
Now here's one here. I think it's very interesting. Die Hard.
Oh.
Die Hard was originally supposed to be a sequel to Commando when it was first developed. He decided he did not want to do it, and actors Harrison Ford and Richard Gere were also considered for the part that, of course, Bruce Willis eventually got and made him a star at the time here. I could picture Arnold in Die Hard. I think that would have been a very interesting, been different, a little bit different of a role, different of a feel of a movie. I think it's probably good that Bruce Willis got it because it made it a whole different tone and vibe, and definitely catapulted Bruce Willis into action hero stardom. But but still a version of Arnold in that. Yeah, I would watch.
I think that's a pretty seamless transition. That fits really well.
Yeah. I did not realize this, but back in 1991, James Cameron had written a 47-page treatment for Spider-Man, of which he had Arnold in mind to play Doc Ock.
Really? That's a struggle for me to picture, because
he's too. Doc Ock is just, he doesn't have he's too. Doc Ock is not a big muscular dude, and he's more of a nerdy, frumpy type of guy.
It's not to say that a scientist can't be like bulky and fit and everything, but like you don't think of that necessarily. The idea, like you said, of in the lab, the scientist crafting these doesn't lend itself to a lot of free time for bodybuilding. So you don't think of the guy that spends his life in the lab being a scientist, coming up with all these inventive things, being super in shape and fit. So that would be kind of weird. Yeah. Now, if you wanted to put him as Venom or the Sandman or something that's this bigger, or something like that, that would make more sense.
Good. I could picture Arnold, as the Rhino.
Yeah.
The original Rhino just had the suit. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, just a big, bulky dude.
Big, huge dude. He would have made a great Rhino.
Yeah, that's a good pick. That's a really good pick.
Or you know what? How about Arnold as Kingpin, even maybe?
Yeah,
like a different type of Kingpin type. Yeah, I like the Rhino as the villain. Though,
less round and heavy, big and more. Right. Yeah.
Okay, he was considered for the role in Air Force One back in 1997. He was several actors being considered for the role. It was actually written for Kevin Costner at the time. He turned it down, and Arnold, Tom Hanks, Dennis Quaid all had their names in the hat, but obviously Harrison Ford got the role. I could picture Arnold as the kick-ass president there.
Oh, yeah. Now, see, I there's two sides to that sword for me because we've talked actually one of our really early episodes we did our favorite fictional presidents, and Harrison Ford's Air Force One president was I think you're right, I did. That was on all of our lists, and I love that movie. I love and I think Harrison Ford fits it perfectly. I wouldn't change a thing about that movie as much as I love Arnold Schwarzenegger, but the other side of that is it gives me, a vision for the reality that I wish I could have, one that Arnold Schwarzenegger is president. And like you said, I could definitely, he has held office. We're familiar with that version of him to where he would be believable in that kind of role, and certainly can kick some fucking ass, as we all know from watching his movies. So that would be interesting.
I like that. They were working on Total Recall 2, but let's see here, he was not impressed with the script, and it just sort of died out after that. So whatever they wrote for it, he wasn't interested. So I'm glad that they did that versus making a bad sequel.
Yeah,
but it would have been interesting. I Am Legend that Will Smith did. He was actually, let's see. Ridley Scott was set to direct the project originally, who directed the original Alien and all that, you might remember. But Scott had brought Arnold on board for the Will Smith part, but Scott left because of budgeting issues, and Arnold dropped out as well, and the movie shifted over to Michael Bay, who brought on Will Smith, and there you go. So
interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it would have been fine. I don't know if it would have been a little bit different, but it would have been good in that role.
Yeah.
And this one I love. I wished it would have went the way as described here. 1997, Face Off. Before John Travolta and Nicolas Cage, the two top considerations for the movie.
Arnold
Stallone. Yes. How great would that have been?
That would have been cool. That would have been cool. I was hoping you were going to say Stallone.
Not meant to be. It's just that it was too much for the universe to handle back in 1997.
Yeah, and that was a good movie. I like that movie a lot. That was, really, really well done movie. But man, that would have been cool. And can you imagine the hype, especially once again, those two, with the legacy behind, not behind them. They were still, in 97, they were still doing stuff, but they've got all those big action movies under their belts, and, like you said, kind of friendly rivals for years and stuff like that. That would have been cool. Damn.
Not meant to be. Not meant to be.
I guess not. We can't handle such awesomeness. You, myself, and Dean on a podcast weekly is about the max that the universe can handle in awesomeness all at once.
Yeah, it's just barely holding on.
Yep.
It's a thread.
The fabric of our reality is hanging on by a thread when the three of us are together.
That's correct. And I feel, Nick, the universe is already, with this conversation, but so much Arnold talk, the universe is already fighting to keep itself together. So it probably would be safe, for the sake of humanity, that we wrap up this episode.
Well, if that's what we got to do to keep life as we know it intact, then I think we should do that.
And I don't think I even have to say who you should try. You should do but who should do the outro as. So I won't even say anything. I'll let you just take it away whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay, well, I think we're on the same page when I say...
Yes, absolutely.
I am your daddy, and here's what you're going to do. You're going to go over to the Google. You're going to type in the keys right in there for you. Google Convincing Idiots. Linktree, LINKTREE. And there, you're going to have Facebook, the Twitter, the TikTok, things of this nature. All of these things are out there for you, as well as our website. Okay? All of these things are there for you. Type them in. If you want to give us an email, all you have to do is type in the email. It's right there. The link is right there. It's literally right there for you to click on. You could also go over to our website, convincingidiots.wordpress.com. untitled.com, and there you will find all of the information and so much more, all of the things you could ever imagine, all of the things right there at your fingertips. All you have to do is click on them. So, for this episode of Convincing Idiots, I am your Millennial Nick.
I'm Brian, Gen X.
Have we convinced you to get to the chopper? Or put that cookie down now! Hey, did you like that video? You know you did, and we know you did. So stop screwing around and go like that video, subscribe to our channel, and join us for some more.